somewhat of a balanced attack, but they favor the run, 65% to 35% passing.
right, we're gonna get back started. Folks can join us as they come in. All right, Director, Building and Housing. Please bring up any members of your team that you would like to join you.
Great.
We're wrapping up with Building and Housing for the day.
Good morning. Or
Good morning.
afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon is upon us.
Yes, have our director, our assistant director, our chief building official. I see
I'll introduce
a
everybody.
new chief in the house. I see a bureau manager and some other folks back there. Okay, I'll let you introduce your people. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair Hairston. Yes, with me today at the table is Colleen Majeski, Assistant Director, and CBO Vanover, who you know so well. And then also with us, for any questions you might have, our Fiscal Manager, McCoy Pizzuti. Next to him, Taysir Hamdallah, our new Bureau Manager of Code Enforcement. We're so thrilled to have Taysir at the helm of Code Enforcement.
And so am I.
McCoy and Taysir. Bureau Manager, Taysir. Yes, and then, of course, we have Karen Detmer, our lead administrative manager, and then administrative manager Alan, who you all know so well as well. So we are here and looking forward to presenting you something very brief, but yet hopefully impactful.
Absolutely. And congratulations to the bureau chief there.
Yeah.
Always doing great work. Listen, he took care of us on the northeast side. I was actually kind of sad when you all. Good for him that he was elevated and great work that he does, but I'm like, man, we're losing somebody special on the northeast side of Cleveland, you know.
Chair, make no mistake, he's still in the field.
Okay, all right. I said, man, you got a town? I said, I'm used to your neighborhood gear when you're going out to businesses, but good for him, absolutely.
Same cell phone.
Yes.
You know how to reach him.
All right, Director.
Okay, so we just have our mission statement here. I'm certainly not going to read all the stuff verbatim to you all. You have this on your tablets. Knowing that our departmental structure is basically divided into three: Director's Office, Construction Permitting, and the Division of Code Enforcement, with their sort of obvious demarcation of duties. Our budgeted head count for 2024 is 166. 6 positions were added this year through the vacancy pool, which was wonderful. Our full-time head count as of October 23rd was 137 with 29 current vacancies, but we have 4 offers pending currently. Our 2025 approved positions, we were still working that out as of today, but it appears that we've landed on a total of 171 as a head count. These are the openings that we have. All of them are currently posted, and you can see where we've already got offers made. So the bulk of these are related to inspector roles, and obviously we're heavily recruiting inspectors currently. We also are working with civil service on the property maintenance inspector category. We've hired some of them, and we continue to want to staff up with them. We've had some great success stories already with people brought in at the lower level job and already getting certifications. So the goal for us is to develop a work pool that we continue to upskill, and that's, essentially what's happening. Residents First, which may be at the top of everybody's mind. How is that going? It's going really well. So far, we've reorganized the Division of Code Enforcement, and that's why we have Bureau Manager Hamdallah here, because we've divided that into 2 bureau managers. We have Bureau Manager Franklin over permitting, and we have Hamdallah over code enforcement. We had to work a lot to modernize Acela to be able to launch all of the different pieces for Residents First, so that's been a constant and ongoing process, but it is in the home stretch. So we first launched our rental changes, which is the non-owner occupied property registration process. So that launched the same week as we had our cyber attack, which was unfortunate, but we rolled with the punches on that one, and that's gone quite well. Our vacant building process has already launched. That was more recent in the past month, but we are seeing people registering their vacant properties. We have got the parking garage certification piece launched. The certificate of disclosure process changes have been implemented. And new in spring, we've been working with Public Works on a new process for grass abatement, which is rolling out in the growing season of 2025. Civil tickets, CBO Vanover here has been working furiously on the final testing of that. They should launch this week. And we have launched a new collaboration with CMHA to improve our rental compliance rates. So we're getting data from them on everybody who has a housing choice voucher in force. So we just sent out thousands of letters to those landlords who had not registered as a rental with us. So some of our accomplishments for the year, some of which we've already discussed, but many of them are new. The construction permitting process overhaul. So this is something that was part of the Mayor's 100-Day Initiative. We've been working on it for more than a year. Baker Tilly was our consultant. We have 39 process improvements that we're working to implement. A lot of that is tech-related with Acela and getting other departments that touch permitting on the Acela process. That work is going on now. We're also working through some of the lower-hanging fruit for building and housing to deliver a better customer experience. We're also going to be onboarding and hiring a customer experience manager for building and housing to look at all of the ways our processes touch customers and make sure that we are delivering the best possible product and experience for the customer. So we did, as stated, implement all of the Residents First pieces. The 311 launch impacted building and housing perhaps the most, next to Public Works, in terms of the volume of calls that come in. We had to do a significant amount of call routing, those complaints into the right paths in Acela, so that was a lot of data-rich work that we had to do. Thanks to Bureau Manager Hamdallah, we have launched systematic code enforcement, and it's going extremely well. We're also working, of course, on the Southeast Side Initiative. This year, we have onboarded 20 new staff with 4 offers pending. And then you have heard about the mayor's changes to the Lead Safe program, and we have been furiously working with Karen Detmer to implement those, which means that risk assessments are now required, is the first step in that process. We were able to secure $9.7 million in ODOD grant funding for demolition, and Wentworth went down as a result of that, along with many other projects. We also established a 1 to 3 family lead compliance unit where we're working very closely with smaller landlords who have a farther way to go to get to lead safe compliance. We also were able to secure $3.5 million from ODOD for a window and door incentive program to help properties become more lead compliance. We've worked with the law department to file civil nuisance actions, otherwise known as receivership, against 7 properties, 4 of which are in the Shaker Square area. We also established a process to use demolition funds to do nuisance abatement that it does not include demolition. So for instance, a building that doesn't have a working elevator, we have been able to go in and repair elevators. We also obtained a $50,000 grant from Center for Community Progress to establish a best practice code enforcement training academy, which Bureau Manager Hamdallah is busily implementing. So we have significantly changed the training process for code enforcement staff. So certainly, oh no, you're okay. The Acela work to upgrade for Residents First and construction permitting has been definitely a lot of our time, and also ITS. So we have to give a shout out to our friends at ITS for doing yeoman's work in helping get this stuff to the finish line. So if you look at some of the metrics for the year, I think the most striking metric is at the top of the page, and that is the valuation of commercial construction for 2024 year-to-date, which is through 11/15. We're at $2.3 billion. Last year, at the close of the year, we were at $1 billion. So this has more than doubled the volume of commercial construction in the city, which has also led to more work for plans reviewers and others. And so we've been working through a lot of backlog in that respect, looking at 101 million of residential construction, which is off slightly from the year before, but we think this is going to pick up in 2025, especially with our modular home efforts that we're launching. But you can see year to date, if you extrapolate and do the math, we're doing more inspections than we have in prior years. And certainly have also received more service requests. I think with the 311 launch, that definitely has made it easier for customers to reach out to us, residents and constituents, to let us know of the concerns that they have. Now, one piece where we see a decline, and this is going to be an interesting test of our civil ticketing, rental registrations have declined generally. So our first order of business, once civil tickets are live, is to blanket issue civil tickets to everybody who has not registered a rental property but should have. So it's going to be a bit of a shot across the bow, and we've been waiting for those civil tickets to launch to start becoming very aggressive in that enforcement. Our vacant property unit is also going to start ground truthing the universe of vacant properties and enforcing on those who have not complied with registration. So the staff up is probably one of the most important things we've done all year. This is a list of all the new staff for 2024 with 4 additional offers pending that aren't listed here. So we did replace, so Alex Abramowitz, our demo manager, resigned to travel the world. So we're very jealous of this. But we were able to bring back Wu Jun, who had previously worked in the Bureau and was ready to hit the ground running. We were super, super excited about that. So we did have some staff transitions, and I know that Councilman Harsh often asks about this, but how many left? The bulk of them were retirements. We had a few go to other cities, people who had become CBOs, and there was no place for them here, so they've moved on to other cities. There were 3 of those. Chuck Okoye, and this may have been mentioned in planning's presentation, he's moved to planning because our zoning functions have relocated to the planning department. But other than that, we've had a lot of retirements, but I would say, we've retained the bulk of our staff. And 11 promotions internally, including Bureau Manager Hamdallah. So we're very pleased that we've been able to develop the staff, been able to promote from within, and been able to attract from the outside. So these are very hard to see on the screen, but you have them on your tablets. So you have org charts for the Division of Construction Permitting, the Director's Office, and also the Division of Code Enforcement, where it also highlights where we have vacancies. So that concludes the brief presentation, and certainly we know you have questions, so we look forward to answering those.
Thank you. Yes, Councilman.
Quickly, how many people are in code enforcement?
Through the chair to the councilman, of course, you asked the question that I don't have written down. I want to say it's approximately 80.
Thank you.
You got it. Thank you, Councilman. Yes.
Since I have to go, could I ask a couple brief questions? I really apologize for
Sure.
jumping the line.
We'll let you jump in. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you. I have many more questions that I'm sure my colleagues will get into about the staffing and the inspections. And look forward to continuing the conversations about the lead work. I just wanted to briefly ask about the grass abatement process in spring 2025. This is something that we had talked about in 2024, didn't end up happening. Could you illuminate that a little bit and what that process is going to look like? Through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilwoman. There was an issue that, there was no money appropriated to hire outside mowing contractors for the second half of the year. And so that ended up causing us to have to follow the same process we had previously followed, but we've had meetings on a steady cadence with Public Works and with Urban AI to cement the process. So there has to be a nice seamless handoff from the Acela system to the Public Works system, CityWorks, which they've figured out. And I think that we've also figured out a path forward for budgeting these people and how we're going to be continually submitting these handoffs. So as you might recall from before, the way the process changed is it's one citation for a growing season on an occupied property. So we issue one 72-hour notice, then we're able to abate. So there was a lot of difficulty just logistically with how that would show up in CityWorks, how they would get this work order, how they would dispatch this work order, but I think we're finally at the finish line. So I'm pleased to say that I believe in April we're ready to roll.
Great, and just to clarify, so that means if we have an occupied structure that is overgrown above 6 inches, what is the new process going to be through the chair?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, it's 8 inches is our code.
Oh, thank you.
actually. So the way that would work, it would either come to us as a complaint or we would systematically pick up on the high grass. So as we're doing our systematic code enforcement work, we may go ahead and cite that with a 72-hour notice if we see it. We will also respond to complaints, but the idea is that we would address this as much as possible early in the growing season so that they are all on notice that now your grass, if it's out of compliance, could be cut by the city and charged back to you.
Okay, so as a council member, we can submit the ticket. Is it going to be through the 311 portal or Acela through the chair?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, the 311 portal is going to be the best way to give us those complaints, for sure. But again, systematically, we'll be picking up as many of them as possible. So it could be, and that was the other piece, was figuring out if you do submit that through 311, yet we've already cited it, there's a message that will come back to you saying this has already been cited and is going to be on the abatement list. So we had to get all of that workflow figured out.
Got it. And is your expectation that the actual mowing and abatement is going to take place on that short time horizon of 72 hours, or is it going to be a longer? It's going to be the first year. I know we're going to be testing stuff out, but what's your goal through the chair?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, it depends on how Public Works is able to logistically manage this with outside contractors. We hope it'll be shorter cycle times, but we cannot be sure.
Okay.
So it could still be a 6-week cycle time, but the hope is that that will just start to shrink as we get more familiar and comfortable with the process.
And last question, and I really do thank you, Chair, for letting me jump the line because I'm running to my office hours at the Slavic Village Fleet Library branch. But last year, there was a lot of finger pointing between health and building and housing to then get it to Public Works. And so I'm wondering if you can clarify the role of the health department with regards to high grass and weeds through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, health is able to also issue 72-hour notices. So we both have the same work process, but it's the intention for us to steer most of that. So
Okay.
those complaints are going to now come to us.
Okay, so we can do just building and housing, not health.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Santana.
Clarity. Are you saying that, through the chair to the director, when we put in a health complaint, it should just go to building and housing?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, no, not all health complaints. We're talking about high grass.
Just high grass?
Yeah.
But
Not
litter,
other.
garbage, all that still goes to the health department?
Yes. Correct.
Okay.
Got it. All right. Anything further, Councilwoman?
No, thank you, Chair.
All right, you're welcome. Councilman Chris Harsh, Dan Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to the director, I'm going to have to ask you because I've been hearing this a lot. And you said your staffing level added 6 positions through the vacancy pool. Why do people keep saying that? There is no vacancy pool. We put an end to it last year during the budget. We specifically allocated more people to your department as city council. Why does every director come up here and say that they added people through the vacancy pool?
Through the chair to the councilman, because it did exist last year, and we did get 6 positions through it. We know that there's no more vacancy pool,
Okay.
but they did give us the 6 from the vacancy pool.
So we allocated the positions in last year's budget away from the vacancy pool, and every director is bringing it up. It's just interesting. Through the chair to the director, the 130% increase in commercial permits is amazing, by the way. I don't think we've never topped $2 billion before. I think that's a record. Is that a particular project? Was that the Sherwin-Williams permits coming in? Was that the police department? Was there something that added 130%? Because that's a huge jump. And
So,
You're not on.
Yeah, there were some large projects that we received this year. The big 3 over at the Cleveland Clinic helped, the Sherwin-Williams project helped, the Metro Apex project. But the reality is it's everywhere. We're really building everywhere. Not all $100 million projects, but we're actively building in every neighborhood in every ward to the tune of multiple $1 million. I've got some numbers here of Ward 6 has a 194% increase
that's
in
awesome.
construction. And then, there's Ward 13 has a 229% increase, multiple 100%, 12 million. There's just, we're working diligently to get them through and reviewed and approved, but we're building in every neighborhood in the city.
Mr. Chair, this is fantastic news, and everybody in Cleveland should be excited about this. I've said since day one that we have to build the city we want to live in, right? Cleveland has experienced decades of decline. We can no longer manage decline. We have to embrace a growth mentality. And I think that possibly some of this, and not all of it, but some of it might even be ARPA funds that have been allocated and pushed out there into the community, finally turning into permits that are being issued to use some of those funds that we're helping with gap construction costs and different elements like that, aside from projects that have been in the pipeline for a while. But this is all very, very encouraging because we do want our city to grow, and building is one of the best ways to do it. So that's all very encouraging. I do have questions, Director, specifically about the vacancy numbers again. So we have 29 currently open. You're hoping to add 5 with a goal of 171 for 2025, which means there would be 34 vacancies. And I'm looking at these vacancies, and the big number, aside from everything's 1 or 2, except the 9 in residential building inspectors. So through the chair to the director, are those the exterior inspections that are the new employment category, or what are those 9?
Through the chair to the councilman, residential building inspectors are fully certified inspectors. They can inspect interior, exterior. Property maintenance inspectors are an entry-level role, but when we're not able to attract a residential building inspector, we'll swap and be able to try to get additional property maintenance inspectors.
Okay.
So, we've had a lot of success, and this is really a credit to Bureau Manager Hamdallah in helping some of our new people already get certifications that started as a PMI. So we're really pleased about that we're kind of creating our own pipeline into the higher level positions.
That is good. So through the chair, director, how many property maintenance inspectors do we have on staff right now? You're looking for 3 more, but how many are in their total? And being
I'm looking at Hamdallah because I think it's currently 3 because a couple of them already got promoted, right?
Yeah, we have 3.
Yeah.
We have 3 and we're looking for 3.
Yes, but
Okay.
bear in mind, and through the chair, that we're able to swap. So let's say we can't get RBIs, we can swap them for PMIs and then, help upskill them into RBIs. We hope everybody would get their cert, and that's the goal, is that
Sure.
within a year of hiring, we're already upskilling.
Yeah, no, promotion and growth from within is the key, I think, to any healthy department, right? We want people to see careers in the city, and that means growing their skill set, growing their advancing through the ranks, and I would assume commensurate salary increases as well. So through the chair to the director, that property maintenance inspector, though, that is what I have in mind when I think about that exterior only, lower level of certification that you fought to create, right? Okay, so through the chair, you know that I've been talking about this a bunch. I'm going to beat this horse until it's dead. We've got a bunch of people working in, what do we call them now? We don't call them healthy housing because HUD has that designation somewhere else, but we've got them in community development. Community engagement specialists.
I got your back.
Yes, thank you. See, this is fine. The community engagement specialists, I am advocating to move them from community development into building and housing and have them become property maintenance inspectors, get them off on that track. It just so happens that they would match 1 per ward. I also think that this is essential for 2 reasons. I believe in code enforcement, as you know. I'm doing my own property survey in Ward 13. I've done 7 of the 9,000 houses in Ward 13, and I'm watching porches get fixed. I'm watching houses get painted. I have landlords in other states contacting me saying, Councilman, I fixed all 3 of my houses because I got your letter saying that I was out of compliance with city codes. And I am proving to myself, for everybody's benefit, code enforcement works. It gets attention. And if it doesn't work 100% of the time, the percent that it does work is a dramatic improvement in our community. Even if it only works 20% of the time, that's an improvement in our community. I don't want to have to do this, though, for the rest of my career. I don't think council members should be the ones out there doing code enforcement, but there is nobody right now doing systemic house-by-house code enforcement. I think these community engagement specialists are the future of code enforcement in Cleveland. And I think if we move them from community development into building and housing, get them trained up as property maintenance inspectors, then they will have the ability they need to go out there and tell somebody, I'm going to need you to put your gutter back up, or that's a violation. I can write that violation up if you refuse to hang your gutter. By the way, if you're a tenant, can I talk to you about lead poisoning? Because if we don't start canvassing the city very intentionally, door to door, face to face, one-on-one, one at a time, then we're never going to get this information into the hands of people that need this information. And my question through the chair to the director is, will you be receptive to me giving you 15 more people that are already employees of the city of Cleveland, that already work in the neighborhood, and that are excited to go out there and help their neighbors?
Through the chair to the councilman, I recently met with Aaron Tate Miller about the community engagement specialist to talk about how we could work more synergistically with them. We have some great ideas, actually. So it's kind of like the good cop, bad cop approach. So we are out doing systematic code enforcement. Yes, we're trying to increase our ranks. We're absolutely dying to increase our ranks, and we're working at it every day. There is a role for them, however, so these are the ambassadors that are out, trying to canvass before we go out. So this is part of the conversation I had with her, is the idea that if we're going to hit an area with systematic enforcement, can they go out ahead of us, give the resource information, hey, it's coming, here's what you need to do. The other way I think that the folks have been helpful over in CD is also the willingness to help people who are struggling. They've
So,
kind of.
I'm sorry, Director, you're saying no?
I'm saying that I think we've got a groove going, Councilman, that I think is pretty good, to be
Okay,
honest.
so
And of course, anybody.
Through the chair to the director, how many people work in your systematic code enforcement program right now? 7, right. There's going to be 15 wards in the city of Cleveland. There's 100-some thousand units. We need way more than that. That's not enough people, and I'm sure they're wonderful people, and my hat's off to the work that they do, because I know that it's hard work and it's very necessary. But that's not going to get the job done. Not for a city this size with the problems that we are trying to surmount, right? We need more people in this department, and through the chair to the director, I just don't see us ever getting close to the numbers that we need. And if we've got these folks already ready to work in the neighborhoods, they're already regionally educated on the neighborhoods that they are already in, and we can give them, we don't necessarily need good cops and bad cops if you've got a left hand and a right hand on the same person. And they can hold the carrot with one hand and a stick in the other. And they can say, which do you prefer, the carrot or the stick? Because I got both, right? And give those people the option. Do you want to register your property? Do you want to get the lead clearance exam for your rental property? Or do you want me to just cite you for all of these problems right now? Because I can do both. Like, I don't know that we need to duplicate this when we can give one person both tools. And I'm going to be telling my colleagues that I think this is really the path forward for us to get this job done. We don't want to sit here 5 years from now and hear the lead poisoning has not gone down again, right? This was pretty soul-crushing the first time, and we actually are able, on very intellectual level, understand why it has not dipped the level that we want it to dip. But I remain convinced and steadfast that it's not going to dip in the next 5 years unless we begin the very intentional canvass of the city of Cleveland, and that requires code enforcement and resource distribution. So through the chair to the director, I appreciate all the work that you're doing here, and I think that you have one of the most challenging departments in the city of Cleveland, with some of the hardest work that needs to be done for our residents. I think we still need to get more people in your department. I still think we need to have more than 171 people in building and housing. I think that your department is a revenue generator for the city of Cleveland, and that money should go back into your department. And I've been advocating from day one that we need to put more money into building and housing. I struggle, though, to win this conversation, to win this argument, when we don't get when we're not close to that 166, when we're still 29 behind. And if I can take 15 people and get them into your department like tomorrow, and that helps you be more successful with these very important programs that you're trying to succeed in, I think that's what we need to do. And I suppose that's probably more of a job for me to lobby my colleagues than it is for me to sit here at the table and tell you that that's how I feel. But while this lobbying has happened, please understand that that's why it's happening, because these issues are very serious, and we cannot continue to dance around the fact that we have to have these conversations with people one-on-one, and a code enforcement personnel in the building and housing department is the best person to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Well, you know how I feel. I support your thoughts that we need to ship those folks and give them to you so you can work with them in your department and get them on the track. I think they can, as he said, lead with both the carrot and the stick and do some work. We can also go out and show them and tell them what's wrong, provide them some resource to help them out, but also come back if they choose not to follow along or follow up or support what it's been asked for them to do. That's the one thing I like about Taste here is that when he went to a place, he actually talked with them. He knocked on the door.
Always.
He worked with them, right? And said, hey, let's come on outside, let's talk, right? He didn't show up when the business was closed at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to give them a citation. No, he provided customer service, which you and I have talked about that in the past. We're going to go to Councilman Starr and then Councilman Joe Jones.
Thank you. I will be real brief because I got a 3 o'clock, and when you have these community members want to meet with you, you got to get there. Through the chair, I noticed that a lot of residents received a vacant property letter. Can we explain what that process actually went about?
Through the chair to the councilman, yes. In fact, we had disseminated some information to you all through Joe Tytran about this. So when we use data to determine the universe of vacant parcels, we use multiple data sources. We used aggregated county data, various pieces of county data. We used U.S. Postal Service vacancy data, and that appeared to be where the flaw was in our data. So we realized the U.S. Postal Service vacancy data was responsible in a large number of the cases of the about 5% margin of error we had with that letter writing campaign. So we sent out 6,200 letters based on these different data pieces. And we believe there's about a 5% callback, people saying, hey, my house isn't vacant, I lived there for 20 years. Well, we kept tracing it back to the U.S. Postal Service vacancy data, which we now know to be more unreliable than we suspected. So unfortunately, the other piece was we were not able, as I thought, to get utility shutoff data, which would have really helped us call that down. So now the big process is our vacant property unit is going to go out and start canvassing, determining the ground truth of what is truly vacant. Then we can begin our compliance efforts with that.
And Councilman, if I could jump in, why couldn't we get the utility information?
Through the chair, we were just unable to do so. There's a lot of privacy issues with that, and
Okay.
even in our own utility, we really have some difficulty gleaning that information. On a 1 and 2 property basis, yes, but in a bulk basis, very reluctant to provide that for privacy issues.
Okay. Councilman?
Yes, and through the chair, the total amount of letters that went out was how many letters?
Through the chair to the councilman, 6,200 letters.
6,200 letters, and it was first class, right?
Correct.
So that's about 69 cents. I just want to make sure because with some of the comments and remarks that Councilman Chris Harsh brought up, it's the fact that we don't have enough inspectors to be able to go out there. So if it's 6,200 letters, I know I've got an influx of calls just in my ward. And as I talk to my other colleagues, they have a lot of calls. So I just want to make sure, to the chair, to the director, is there any way that we can get that actual mail list of how many properties received this letter? Because when you read the letter that I'm reading right now, it just straight tells someone that your property is vacant, you don't live here. And residents like, well, I pay my mortgage, I pay my insurance, I pay my taxes. What you mean I don't live here? And then it goes into all of this fees of $1,000 registration. Then it says if you're in a commercial industry, how it goes from 10,000 square feet or less, then it goes to a bond of 5,000. All of those things, one, is confusing. Two, I don't want to say it like that, is that we wasted money, but I think it's a more robust process that you can be able to identify and not just relying on Google Maps. Because sometimes Google Maps be pictures of something that was 2 years ago versus what it is today. And what I'm just trying to do is get things in line, because residents feel as if they're being targeted when they're not the ones that's the out-of-town people that are just not taking care of their property or not taking care of their properties or making sure their homes are not vacant or they occupied. So my question would be is, what do we do if a resident don't get a chance to talk to their council person and they are one of the ones who say, well, I do live here and I am here and I am taking care of my property? What do we do if we start finding those individuals that are not in compliance? They just got a letter and they like, hey, this is not me, and they ignore it. How do we make sure they don't get hit with these penalties when they shouldn't be, through the chair?
Through the chair to the councilman, yes, just to clarify, we used property survey data. The property survey we conducted, we used different county data, and we used U.S. Postal Service vacancy data. We never used Google Maps to determine vacancy. We have created an online form that's on the city's webpage. So we updated the vacant property site on the city's webpage. There's an online form for reporting an error, that you received a property notice in error for vacant property. In hindsight, should we have put that already up front in the letter? If this is incorrect, tell us by doing this. Yes, 100 times yes. I wish I had done that. Lesson learned, for sure. Okay. Lesson learned. So, and I've talked to a number of residents myself, because I've called them back, many of them very concerned. I've apologized to them for the error. I've also asked them some questions like, do you get your mail in a post office box, just to try to discern where this data problem was coming from? So some residents don't receive their mail at home, they receive it in a P.O. box. That may register as a postal vacancy for that address, even though that is definitely an occupied property. So I want to stress, there will be no enforcement action taken until we go out and make sure that's a vacant property. So we're going to physically go out and canvass that.
Oh, thank you. That is very important. Also, from me and a couple colleagues taking a trip to a conference, I learned that other cities are using drones to go look at different properties as well. Is that something that we as a city thought to explore as well, from the building and housing department, where we can utilize that to be actually get eyes, pictures of a property, since we only have, I believe, through the chair, you mentioned 7 inspectors. Do we have some type of capabilities to help with that, to possibly expedite some of the stuff that we want to see in different neighborhoods?
Through the chair to the councilman, we have approximately 80 people in the Division of Code Enforcement, but we are exploring some AI tools, not so much drones, but other AI tools that we can use. We're working with ITS on this, so looking at different ideas, because we agree that would help our capacity tremendously if we had a reliable tool to, look at real-time data on property status.
Yep, and I'm gonna wrap up, Chair, because I got to get out of here. I got to get to Shiloh. I sent them the link, let them know I'm leaving now. But one thing I would say is, as far as the demolition, do we have a new demolition manager, and will they update the restoration after the demolition process takes place, so Public Works can know which properties they need to cut for the grass versus it used to be a house, then us as a council person right down the street had to figure out that this lot had been cut. A resident said this was tore down 6 months ago, or it was tore down in this fall, so in the spring it needs to be cut, but it once was there. What is the working between cross-department as far as making sure we have that process in place, through the chair?
Oh, yes, through the chair to the councilman. Woo Jun, who used to work in the Bureau as a demolition compliance officer, and prior to that, I think he had been in the law department. He's an attorney. He's come back to us as the Bureau Manager of Demo because Alex retired to travel the world. Yeah, we're very happy for him. But at any rate, Woo is back, and there is a lot of communication with Public Works. But in addition, there is a sweep of the city for vacant lots. So as you know, that the Public Works Department puts an ad in the paper saying, you own a vacant lot, it's going to get cut if it's over 8 inches, and then puts everybody on notice, and then does sweeps by area throughout the growing season, and they are on that, obviously on that sweep list. So we do communicate a lot with them, and I absolutely rely on them so much to help us out, and they've been terrific.
Okay, and then my final one is for the permitting process. Do we have a formal document that break down in different tiers the actual process to get a permit? To the chair.
Want to handle that?
So we do, and we have multiple documents that do that. They're published on our website, as well as documents from the Ohio Board of Building Standards on what is required. They're separated because the planning, landmarks, and design review process is separate from the building permit process. But we do have those, and we are currently under our permit process enhancement, really nailing down and clarifying not just planning and building, but also right-of-way, sidewalks, Bureau of Traffic, all of those pieces. So we can provide you with those documents on what that process requires.
Yes, and to that point, because if a resident or a business that's probably been around for 100+ years and they wants to build a garage on their property, do we have something that this property owner or this business owner to go to and say, hey, this is the process of pulling the application, what is the next steps, what is the follow-up through, and what happens for just that type of permit that's needed in order for to build that?
So for garages, we do. Obviously, we do not have an independent document for every type of construction on every type of structure in the city because that's an infinite number. But for broad strokes, residential additions, residential remodels, commercial remodels, adding a garage, adding an accessory structure, those do exist.
Okay, and I would just put a request to the staff, if I may, Chair, to get a breakdown for different tiers of type of permit processing. I believe it is important for residents to be able to have something, or a guide from council members to be able to assist a resident or a business owner on what they actually need to do. Because sometimes what I've learned is when they put through the application and they get approved through our city planning, or they get sent back to the permits office, they may have to come down and pay a $20 fee. And by the time they get notified of that, 45 more days that went by when it could have been something they already was looking forward to do, or possibly was proactive in making sure they paid that up front. So therefore, it can speed up the process so people can be able to do that. So I would definitely put that request out to the chair, to our staff, if we can get a breakdown on different tiers. It don't have to be all the way to each one, but to say if it falls up under this type of guideline of a permitting process within upgrades, these are the steps that it takes to do it. So therefore, it can help everyone out in the process so they all know where it's at. And that's all I have, Chair. Now y'all got to go.
Yep, through the chair to the councilman, I totally agree with you, and that's part of the work we're doing, reforming the Division of Construction Permit, exactly what you said. Make it clearer, make it easier to navigate the process, which can be complex, depending on that type of project. So take some of the mystery out of that. Also, the reason we're hiring the customer experience manager to truly make sure that whatever we're sending out is understandable, you understand what we're asking you to do, it's easy steps, right? So we're breaking it down. So thank you for the question.
All right, thank you, Councilman Starr. Yeah, that'll be helpful, and so as you go through that process, and expect the timelines, because I got a person who's looking just to build a metal storage, so he can, he does tool, equipment refabrication, and he, his tool shop and tool and die shop that he has.
Sure.
He's been waiting since September for a response. So that's we'll talk about that later. But to have that and kind of have expectations on timing would be good. Councilman Jones, would you mind if Councilwoman Spencer went now because she needs to go? Yeah, which one you want?
Well, I always yield, but since you have half an hour,
Okay.
if I can still see you while I do my
like that.
questions, I'll be appreciative because you might be able to give me a hand on some of it.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, my colleague. I sit here and I look at this. I know that we have had a couple of these meetings. The first time we had it last year, and I wasn't too much of a fan with the process and everything. Have now been conditioned. And so though I sit here being conditioned like this and trying to deal with it in this way, I want to move towards the direction of the budget, right? So first, for starters, in the presentation, there was new construction valuation on the commercial side, and new commercial or new construction on valuation on the residential side. And do we have a breakdown, Mr. Chairman, to the director that can give us where that work is actually happening?
Yeah.
Do you have a copy where you can give it? I just want to look at it. You go through all that and be too much time. So can we have it copy? Can we make a copy of it? Inez, distinguished lady. She must have the earpieces in.
Thanks, Susan. Thanks, TC.
Thank you. Make copies for the committee. Thank you, Inez. All right. Thank you, sir. Okay. The next question would be in terms of production, right? So we talked about, and we've been talking about this for quite some time. I know this goes all the way back 30-some years when there was all these I've been through so many directors, it's crazy. And we still have the same problem. It's like a cancer that we can't seem to get rid of. And it is accountability. And it is about, and again, it comes right back down to voters who feel that elected officials are letting them down constantly on basic stuff. So if I, Mr. Chairman, and this is no fault of your own, have been at this table talking about the same thing, and there's no improvements. It's almost as equivalent as sitting at this table talking about how bad the vacant lots are and that they're not being cut. And then eventually, thank God, they did a whole big turnaround this year in my neighborhood. I'm impressed with the fact that now I don't have to complain as much because they're taking more of an offensive approach on dealing with the issue. You can recall, Mr. Chairman, to Director Martin, when you made the presentation and you showed the housing stock in the city of Cleveland, how bad this housing stock is. And we got all these people, 30-some years, or 40-some years, in fact, 50 years. And the housing stock, we have all these inspectors, but yet there seems to be no bent in trying to stop what's actually happening in terms of the erosion and deterioration of our housing stock, which is significantly important. It's the whole point of having a building and housing department is to fundamentally deal with that. So I wonder if I could just dig a little deep here, a little granular. I think my colleague Chris Harsh tried to be all sweet and nice about how you gonna bring in, which I thought was good, how you gonna bring in and hopefully have a stable of people to come in and be in building the housing department. So with that being said, let's go to code enforcement inspections. We see that code enforcement inspections up by 38,125. Can you, Mr. Chairman, to the director, so that I'm very clear on what this means, what does that mean to this code enforcement inspections? What is that?
Through the chair to the councilman, I brought up Bureau Manager Hamdallah also to address some of your concerns, because it sounds to me like you're talking about accountability. Like, what are they out there doing if I have to send you a text about Milverton every other day, that they're not handling that dumpster at the building?
Oh, yes, I had put you
And
on
I
that,
totally
yeah.
get that. And enforcement is a process, as you know, and it's not always fruitful. So we can keep issuing citations and tickets. However, civil tickets, remember, are our new tool, right? For those who just ignore us, 80% of them who don't show up for their first arraignment, the constant tail chasing that we do in building and housing. And so those are launching this week. We intend to launch them with a bang.
Okay, so
especially
what does that mean?
$200 ticket. If you don't
Okay,
pay it,
good.
it goes against your property, right?
Good.
So we've been talking about this for a year,
Yes.
but it's finally hit the finish line where we're going to start using
Excellent.
that tool. It's going to be helpful to
Okay.
us. But I would say, just in terms of accountability, to bring this up, we have data dashboards we've created. So essentially, we can look at every single inspector and how many inspections they've made in that week, in that day. that also takes into account were they on vacation one of the days, that gives us a trend line. We never had that before.
Great.
So we're using data metrics to drive performance as well. But I do want to speak out for the people, and you see the 38,000. That's a lot of work that human beings had to do. And they work very hard. So I just want Bureau Manager Hamdallah to speak to the strategy there. If you have questions specifically about how he's deploying people, especially in a systematic way, he's the guy.
Before he speaks, Mr. Chairman, can you tell me, because I like you already, you got her attention to make the copy. What's your name, if I may ask, Mr. Chairman?
Through the chair, my name is Taysir Hamdallah.
Okay, Taysir, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Go ahead, Mr. Malik.
So, through the chair, to the councilman, we have, in my bureau, we have about 4 units that are currently up and running. Each unit is work specific. For example, the vacant property unit, the systematic code enforcement unit, the rental inspection unit, and our complaint unit, which is, these are the complaints that come in from 311 directly to those inspectors. And so
you have you have 4 departments that you...
five units.
5 units?
With the...
Main Street.
Do we
with
have
the
that
Main
on the presentation?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And so that number that you see up there, the 38,125, that is in my area. Now, we do have, on the other side, permits, construction, those kind of inspections on the other side. But my area basically focuses on code enforcement. So these are all types of code enforcements that we do. Systematic area, I want to speak more about that, is sort of the things that we're the new thing that we're doing. We're proactively going, out, handing warning tags, more customer service friendly, and so far it's working at a pretty good rate. As far as when we say about accountability, we can account for every inspection, every inspector, where they are, what they do, how much time, and we use all that data to improve in how we go about getting better. In the last few months, we've set up a training program to sort of, make our inspectors better, and also try to get the inspectors that we do have that aren't certified, certifying them. So we did develop a training, myself and some of my staff. We developed a training program to where we can, improve the inspectors. And how we did that was,
Well, I guess what I want to, and I know you're moving, but I just want to, if I may, distinguished gentleman, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Malik, for code enforcement, you got those 5 different sections. How many? And that would, I would presume, would that be the 80-some employees that we now have that will be in that department, just handling just code enforcement?
Through the chair to the councilman, that's everybody in the Division of Code Enforcement. That also involves permit inspectors as
So that
well.
involves
They also
permit.
did 38,878 permit
They went out,
inspections.
so they did the permits too. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's what I want to get, at least in my mind. I want to know who's out on the street, right? Not the ones who are working behind the desk, administrators, all of that, right? The people who are going to the houses right now. When I call you up and I said, please, beautiful Miss Martin, can you please get someone out there? How many folks is it?
Chairman, through the
I
chair
can't see
to,
it if
yeah.
you can tell me.
If you
I
look,
can't even see it on here. I need some glasses.
yeah, it's big now. I blew it up there. So the right-hand side of your screen, those are all code enforcement units with code enforcement inspectors.
How many people is it? You want me to count them?
It is correct for the whole division, but if you count it, Yeah, 80 total inspectors.
How many
with
inspectors
about,
going on the street?
About 30, right, T-Sir, if we're counting it
Now,
up?
we were told we were going to have 120. So
Well, you
did
have
we
That's on one
decrease?
side. I'm sorry,
So
Councilman.
is it 120 total?
It's 80 total.
It's 80 total. Now, we were told it's going to be 120. I wrote it down in the book.
So if you look at our open positions, okay, we have hired, those are our open positions, okay? So our goal here is to get to full staffing. So if you look at our head count, the budgeted head count for 2024, where we came into this year is 166. We're currently at 137. We have 29 vacancies with 4 new offers pending. We believe, the bulk of these, of course, are inspector positions that we're recruiting. Not all, but most. Some are in supporting roles.
Yeah, I just want to get straight to it. So how many inspectors do we have in the street? I mean, these are people, when I get on that phone, because here's where it comes down to. Here is the cancer that we have to get to. And I know some folks may not like to listen to this, but it is a major issue of quality of life for people who purchase their homes, businesses that are in the business of having business, to be around falling down businesses, properties that just absolutely are eyesore, day in, day out, month in, month out, year in, year out, and nothing seems to happen. The place just continues to fall apart around us. And so how many inspectors are the ones that are out there dealing with, you have 2 sections here, one that does with just strictly commercial, right? And then one that deals strictly with residential. How many people do we have in those 2 areas? Out on the street on a they don't do nothing else but do this.
Through the chair to the councilman, they're furiously counting them up, but we know we have 80 in the Division of Code Enforcement, which encompasses permits, which is not just commercial, it's also residential, and also the code enforcement. So as we onboard new staff, the bulk of them are all going into code enforcement. Do we
So they'll
think?
be on the street. So we have about 30 right now that we know
Yes, they're going to
of.
go onto the street, yes.
About 30 right now in the street.
30 on the code enforcement side.
Is that both residential and commercial?
Yes.
Okay. So here's my problem, Mr. Chairman, to the director. That's not enough.
No.
And so it's a problem. So, and then here's your major issue, is your customer. Your customer is the voter. The voter is saying, I'm tired of this. What are you going to do about it, Joe Jones? What are you going to do about this, Mayor Justin Bibb? This house has been here. What are we doing about it? I took 8 properties, sent them over. Still, I got same issues with those 8 properties with the exception of 1. But they're still the same. They're still an eyesore. I don't know where they are in the process, but whatever it is we're doing, and I'm glad that we have some tool of $200 fine. Can we increase it? Is it $200 ticket every time we go out there? And it can be increased? I mean, is there some twos, and I'm just saying this for me, is there any twos, any documents that I can go and show these people, hey, you better clean it up because they're going to come and give you a ticket? You know, because right now I have to go out and tell these folks, and this is the truth, please pick up your garbage and your debris. Please cut your grass. Please let me help you get into the paint program. I'm out there fundamentally trying to work, and I need assistance from the city to be able to do that. And that's the reason why I say, Chris Harsh made the comment, and I've been saying it for the longest. Building and housing does generate cash flow for the city of Cleveland. And I've said this over and over again. We should be able to take percentage of that and turn it back over into the department. Now, I don't know how you do it for those employees who are really doing some heck of a work, you know, and paying them bonuses. I don't know if you can do that. But I'm a fan for being able to pay folks who do their work and give them the salaries they need to have in order to do it effectively and efficiently. Because right now, our citizens are the voters, and they've been letting me have the blues on these vacant properties, on these properties where we have a lot of LLCs who own the properties. They don't do nothing about these properties, and I'll share this, Mr. Chairman. That's my biggest issue right now in my neighborhood in terms of complaints, is the housing situation. So I've been really patient on this end of the table, and really nice, because I like you, Sally Martin, but I need to be able to know that we're really putting a dent in it. Now, I see all the other stuff. It looks good, really does. But right now, the main issue that's going to cause for a person not to get elected and to get elected is the stuff that's happening on the street. The other side, the other party didn't pay attention to listening to what the complaints and concerns were of the people. And now we got this thing in office again. So at the end of the day, I just want to say, pretty pleased with sugar. Can we increase that to 30 more people?
Through the chair to the councilman, you see our open head count. We intend to fully staff the department. We're working furiously at that task. It is a daily task for us to continue recruiting and attracting more people. With the last ratification of the Local 100 contract and the other 2 unions we have in building and housing, we believe we made salaries very competitive. With the data metrics that we're using to track productivity, I think that if there's an inspector who doesn't want to work, they're probably going to start looking to move somewhere else because they know that we're, keeping an eye on it. And I would say that our staff are very hardworking. They're doing what they can. And then just if we look only at the southeast side and our work there, which has been great. We've completed 6,852 inspections on the southeast side. We've issued 1,748 permits. There's $30 million of commercial activity on the southeast side. There's 10 million of residential construction over there. So, we're there, and that's where the bulk of our systematic enforcement is. And what Bureau Manager Hamdallah has found is that when we are doing that approach and we are sweeping a neighborhood and knocking on doors, we're getting results 40% of the time. So we need more of that. And I think what it says in the neighborhood is that there's care and concern, that standards matter in your neighborhood, because we do know that with our compliance efforts, sometimes it is a journey, right? Trying to get somebody in court, it's very hard. So civil tickets will be a good tool for us. And I believe, yes, our chief assistant director of law, Dave Roberts, is here, who handles our docket.
Who?
Chief Roberts from the law department.
How you doing, Mr. Roberts?
He handles our code enforcement law docket. Just wanted to announce he's in the room. But, code enforcement is my passion in the world. It's what I care about the most because I think what it says in a neighborhood is your neighborhood matters and we have standards for your neighborhood. So that's where we're headed. And yes, do we need more people? 100%. Are we trying to actively recruit them? Absolutely. And we are hanging on to the people we have, which is great because I think we're creating the kind of workplace where people feel like they're doing purpose-driven work and they want to work here, which is really great. And we have an incredible staff, so I don't want to minimize that. But I think, we all need to be held accountable to our metrics, and that's what we're doing for all of us. So thanks for your question.
And Mr. Chairman, can you, if you could be so kind, I'm going to give you the property addresses. 16612 Fairfax Avenue, 16608 Fairfax Avenue, and then there is Harvard. They call it the Harvard House. I'm trying to find their address right now. But before we get to Harvard, I got one here on East 138th Street. That's been quite a challenge for me. And I think you know how some people just take their address off the house, so I can't see this one. And it has a boat in it. It's on East 138th Street. It's a problem. And I'll get that to you. But I want to find Harvard Avenue, Mr. Chairman, because Harvard is right in the heart of our neighborhood. And this particular property, and I think you are familiar with this one, Mr. Chairman, to the director, it is a property that has it's been turned into a garbage dump right in the middle of our neighborhood. They got the big old garbage trucks come right on in and just, and then they have all of the big trucks and trailers and all of that kind of thing that's happening. And we've complained about it, and apparently the person who is doing this this garbage collection is doing something for Monet Scott over there. I'm not sure how he's connected to her, but I was told that. And it may not be true, but we can't have a garbage disposal operation in the middle of our neighborhood and I've been complaining about it now for 2 years. And I've sent this over, and I don't know what's going on with it. Again, this is one of those 8 houses that I've been talking about for quite some time. And then we have, because these are important, Mr. Chairman, because I want to know those nice inspectors we got. I want them to deal with these basic issues I got, and if they can report back to me, if you can report back to me, Director, you know, on these, I would be so appreciative, because these are what we call cancers in our neighborhood that have been a consistent cancer that takes away from the quality of life. And when people come and they move or want to move away from the neighborhood, their main complaint is that the neighborhood looks dead, the trash and debris is everywhere, no one seems to care, we got abandonment all over the place, and they make those kind of things to me. And, you know, I can't argue it back to them, especially when they're showing me stuff like this. And so if we could take care of that one, if we could look into that for me, please, Director. And then on South Miles, we have property 17005. I've talked about that before it got worse. It has gotten far worse. Debris, dumpsters, the house is falling apart. It's right next to another lot that was owned by a tree company, Brown's Tree Company to be exact. That property is horrible. Commercial, whoever the commercial guy is, he can go right down South Miles right now, start from that property, 17005 South Miles, to Lee Road, and it's a big mess. All of it, from not cutting the grass. I have to go out there to tell them to cut the grass. I have to go out there and tell them to clean up the paper. I have to go out there and tell them to fix the fences. I have to go out there and tell them to quit parking their cars on the sidewalks and the streets. And I'm just getting my hand and something else handed to me every time I have to go out there and deal with this. And I'm frustrated, Mr. Chairman, to the Director. And then we have property 16634 Miles Avenue, that has been falling apart, and it has nothing to do with you, Director. To some degree, now it does, because now you're the Director. That has been like this for 60 years, falling down in the neighborhood. Before I was born, things still falling. And it used to be an old city hall. And so I need your help. I don't have all the rest of the addresses, but if we could get to those, Mr. Chairman, and then, you know, I would encourage, Mr. Chairman, I don't know where we're at on this council. I don't know what the Director may say to this, but I do want to push again the thrust of using those funds that we do generate in the department to invest it back into the department so that we can get our department up to a place where we can start really tackling these issues. And I know, Mr. Chairman, to the Director, you have been doing a great job. I've been listening to some of the folks who come to me and tell me, oh, the Director's doing the best she can. She's really working hard. She has a heck of a job. She's trying to push this, that, and the other. And so I'm very appreciative, because I think that, Mr. Chairman, to the Director, this department has come a long way from where it was before you got it. And so I'm appreciative of all the hard work that you're doing. But I would be so much more appreciative if we can get some of these 8 houses knocked out, or we can get some kind of history of where we at with these properties.
So thank you. You're well over your time, but I appreciate you, and I know it's very
Thank you, Mr.
important in your comments. So I'm going to ask you to come on this side of the table and make sure Mr. Himdallah has those addresses. I know you rattled off some addresses, and I'm confident he can pull up some of that information before we. I want you to come on down here and give him those directly, okay? And so I'm confident he can give you some information before we walk out of this room, okay? All right, thank you, Councilwoman Spencer, and then Councilman Polenzek.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I had half an hour, now I have about 5 minutes, so that's good. It's okay. This is valuable time, and I'm glad to be here. So I think
You said it didn't matter?
I did. I yielded the time. And I'm going to use a few seconds of that time because I'm sitting across the table from Housing Bureau Manager Hamdallah, through the chair to the director to you all.
Bless you.
This individual performs public service at the highest order, and I've seen the work you do in the community, and it's really extraordinary. So you're sitting right across from me. I had to say something. Thank you for all your service. So there's been great discussion today. I think I think the discussion around staffing has been really important, and we want to support. I don't know what council can do to help, but this is, we all agree that we want to see all these positions filled. This is a priority. So I think that's been made clear through the conversation from the other council members. So I actually want to, on the topic of staffing, I want to pivot for just a moment through the chair to plans examiners, because there have been a couple of experiences recently that my office has had with just folks contacting us saying, why is it taking so long to get our permit? So I think it has to do with staffing levels with plans examiners. So through the chair, wanted to ask the director about that. And specifically, I don't know if that had to do with the collective bargaining and what the issue is with finding plans examiners, but it looks like we are down 2 master plan examiners and then 1 residential plan examiner. There may be others. Through the chair.
Yeah. So, through the, am I on here? Yeah. Through the chair to the councilwoman. This is in part, and a majority is us being a victim of our own success. The amount of construction, you've seen the construction value, you've seen the work. And unlike private sector, where we can ramp up, ramp down employees as the need is, as it's needed, we have the positions and the staffing that we have, understanding now that we are building in every neighborhood. So that's a big part of the challenge. We've also done some other things in order to support the code enforcement side. I'm assuming from the context of your question that you're referring to residential folks and people in the neighborhood and residents. And one of the things that we did early last year is that we redefined the requirements for condemned structures. That it's considerably more detailed to stop the houses from flipping from person to person, and also the permit game where they would pull a permit just to tag it, so we wouldn't tear it down. So we redefined what is required to pull a permit for a condemned structure. That's also, and that increased the volume of our residential plan reviews by 25%, roughly 500 structures.
Okay.
So that taxes the system. Now, all of that being said, we are working diligently to hire a 3rd residential plans examiner. Through the Baker Tilly work, through the joint work of everybody, we're also working to bring in city planning and capital projects and all of these other departments into Excella in a more unified process of how that gets done. I think that there was one of the challenges, there was 4 ways to start your permit process through the city, depending on who you knew. And now it's going to be more uniform and more structured.
Through the chair of the councilwoman, if I could just add to, master plan examiners are very hard to hire. They either have to be an engineer or an architect. We did, modify the salaries to make it more attractive. We're also considering the idea of doing part-time or a job sharing arrangement for those who might want a little more work-life balance. And so far, that's attracted some interest, just our willingness to be flexible that way. So we also, through CBO Vanover, created a middle category of commercial plan examiner where maybe you don't have every cert you need for master plans examiner, so we think we'll be able to potentially recruit that as well. And in addition, going out and using where possible outside plans examiners, we're willing to explore that option and plan to do that in the near term.
Thank you. Okay, with a couple more minutes remaining, I told my staff member Heather Lazar I would mention this. She was online and just kind of Googled Residents First Cleveland and wanted to bring to your attention that kind of a scam-like website comes up.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's anything the city can do about this, but it's residentsfirstcleveland.com, and it's sort of like trying to get people to hire them as their local agent in charge, but it's very scammy in the way it feels. So if you just Google Residents First Cleveland, this website, and it's sponsored, residentsfirstcleveland.com comes up, but it doesn't seem like it seems like a questionable operation. So I don't know if there's anything we as a city can do, but wanted to bring that up as something that we noticed, wanted to flag. And then in my remaining minute, I wanted to ask briefly about lead safe, and I'm playing catch up a little bit on my learning curve with that, but wanting to understand building and housing's role now vis-a-vis getting our arms around this big problem. And if there's been kind of policy changes, I know there's the talk about the lead safe clearance exam as opposed to the dust swipe test. So wanting just to briefly understand through the chair, what is the role of building and housing around lead safe?
Thank you. Through the chair to the councilwoman, with the mayor's executive order signed in October, we have made a slight shift. It really doesn't, so our existing lead safe ordinance allows for either a clearance exam or a risk assessment.
Risk assessment, that's
as a
what I meant to
first
say.
step toward getting your lead safe certificate. So at this point, we have started disallowing the clearance exam
Right.
as the first step and asking lead risk assessments to be the first step instead. The reason for this, it provides way more information to the landlord, and we intend to provide this information also to the tenant. So it identifies the areas that need to be adjusted in a property in order to make the property lead safe. What we found lacking with the clearance exam was that, it's really not any holistic assessment of the property. They do a visual assessment and then take dust swipes. The dust swipes could come
Right.
back showing lead, and then they would have to go and do some remediations. But we feel that having the clearance exam from the beginning will provide more actionable information for both the landlord and the tenant.
Or the risk assessment through the chair?
I'm sorry, yes.
I know, I was mixing those
misspoke.
two
I
up,
meant the
too.
risk assessment,
So
correct.
is that now in force, that we are only giving lead safe certificates if a risk assessment has been conducted through the chair?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, yes, as of the 18th of October. So
Okay.
there are many people who are still submitting clearance exams, and that's fine if they were conducted prior to that time or they had sent their samples to the lab prior to that time. So we're honoring that if they were already in that process. But for new applicants, it's going to be the risk assessment. So we've also been doing webinars every single week with the lead worker community, and we continue to do that even this week. We have another one coming up because there have been a lot of questions about this shift, but we believe this shift will lead us closer to our goal of lead safety and reducing lead poisoning, and we have not seen that reduction, obviously, in the former method we were using.
Thank you. With that, I'll yield, Mr. Chair. I'm going to step out, and I may be able to come back if we're still going. So, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My honorable colleagues, and to the administration, to the director and her team that is here. As I've indicated before, the number one call into my office and email daily is about building and housing complaints. And health would be, I'd say, second, which I think are closely related, and then everything else behind that. So when I was thinking about the challenge that we have before us members of City Council as we go into the redistricting process and looking at numbers, and one of the greatest challenges that we have is the population loss. And why do people leave? Because quality of life in their neighborhoods. And you can wrap it around public safety, crime, schools, condition of housing, availability of retail establishments, we'll go on and on. But it's all about quality of life issues, why people decide to talk with their feet and go. And so with building and housing, to me, is one of the most important elements that I'm contending, because I believe if I can maintain the housing stock in my community in the geographical location that I'm at, that it would be a real accelerator in helping me to preserve my neighborhood and do what I need to do there, which I've tried over the years to protect and to expand. So here are my questions. You indicated earlier that you know what each inspector does now. So you know, through the chair, you would know how many specific units an inspector looks at on a daily basis? So you know about how much time they spend on those units, correct? So you could tell me throughout the entire city, the inspectors, how many units they look at a day? Okay. So within the last year, have you terminated anybody?
I'm sorry, yes.
You have? How
Yeah.
many?
We've terminated, well, we had several transitions, but we've terminated, I believe, one inspector last year
One inspector? Mm-hmm. Okay.
through the chair.
Okay, just one inspector's been terminated. Of the cases that have been, units that have been inspected, houses, buildings, et cetera, do you know on a ward basis how many of those were remanded to housing court?
Through the chair, I believe Tayseer has all of the stats. We did not break it down by ward, though.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to request that. I want to break down per ward
Okay.
of how many were remanded to housing court, and I want the addresses associated, because what I find myself doing, I turn in the same address repeatedly, and I get the emails and the phone calls from the residents saying the same thing. Councilman, why do we have to continue to call this in the 311? Why aren't they in court? Why did they totally continue to disrespect the neighborhood, these LLCs, which my neighborhood has been descended upon by the limited liability companies? They are buying up everything, and I'm dealing with people. In a day, I would look up an address based on my seniority here, and it would be owned by Mr. and Mrs. Jones. And even though Mr. and Mrs. Jones didn't live there, I know where their address would, maybe in Euclid or Lakewood or whatever. Now, I'm dealing with companies in Belgium, China, England. I'm dealing with international companies. I'm dealing with a company that is buying up properties in Collinwood Village from Brussels, Belgium. Sight unseen. They're buying them on the internet. And it's something that I have never, ever experienced in my time here. We're being descended upon, and when I did interact with some of these buyers, that when they did come into town, and what was the couple from France, what did they say to me? You have to understand, pointed to a house in the Waterloo Arts District. You know what that house would cost in France? $500,000. But they can buy it for $40,000 or $50,000 there, and then tell me in 3 and 4 years they can make their money back because they're jacking up all the rents. We are now a city where the majority, if I'm incorrect, but I don't believe I am, where the majority of our residents are now tenants, are renters. That's what I've read. At a time in the neighborhood I grew up in, and born in Glenville, raised in Collinwood, where my grandparents lived in Glenville, everybody owned their own home. And if it was rental property, it was because the kids lived downstairs, or grandma lived upstairs or downstairs. These two families, the whole family lived in the house. As my late mother-in-law, the whole family lived in the house. So my concern is, you've indicated 29 vacancies through the chair to Director Martin. Is it money? What is the hurdle for us to fill these critical positions? Because I would say this, and if the mayor was sitting at the table, I can't think of a more important department, Mr. Chairman. I cannot think of a more important department. If we can't enforce the housing stock, then we are on a losing trajectory, and we're not going to recover. We've lost, in my time when I came in this body, we were somewhere hovering around 600,000 people. Now we're, 376 or whatever it is? I see the abandoned homes. And Mr. Chairman, I want to say this to the director and to her team is here. It's just not an issue with us, but the county needs to be a partner with us, because many of these homes that are in derelict condition or they're on the brink. If you look at them, they're all tax delinquent. and they're not being foreclosed on. And I'm dealing with that apartment building on Grovewood that the director is aware of. Owe $90,000 in back taxes. $90,000 in back taxes. That thing should have been foreclosed on God knows how long ago. Yeah, the one that's boarded up. See, the county, Mr. Chairman, the county, we need to get the county at the table. Why can't you get stuff foreclosed on that still have good bones? I've seen in my time beautiful homes taken down in this city, what I call beautiful homes, had good bones because we couldn't find anybody. The house was open to the elements. The roof was penetrated. So therefore now we got black mold. We got everything heaving in the house. But at one time that house could have been saved. That structure could have been saved. But it sat there, tax delinquent, and our friends at the county not foreclosing on the property. So now, Mr. Chairman and my honorable colleagues, now we have to tear it down, and I'm going to ask for this figure. Within the last decade, what have we spent on demolition? If my estimates are correct, it's over $80 million in demolition that we tore down structures. A lot of those didn't have to come down if they had been foreclosed on and put back into the productive system where someone could have come in and bought those properties, or a LDC could have got their hands on them, a CDC, excuse me, and renovated them. We are like, this is like the Titanic, and we're trying to put our fingers and toes in the holes, and it's not working here. I can tell you that right now. And if I have to go on one more trip to church and hear about that lousy Collinwood Tavern, I mean, I'm going to go ballistic. That crap on Saranac, that burned out that I got to have all my kids from Ginn Academy have to walk past every day, that burned out piece of junk that's sitting there. I'm not going to, our kids, these suburban kids don't walk past this stuff. No, they don't. They don't walk past burned out houses and burned out buildings. Our kids do. And I keep asking myself, with the safe routes to schools, why does this stuff continue to sit and sit and sit and sit? So, Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to belabor the point. I've asked for information. I want to know what we spent on demolition in the last decade to date. I would requestably ask that we need to get the county folks over here to explain about the foreclosure process, delinquent taxes, which is a disaster because those are taxes that are owed not only the city of Cleveland, but our school system. They just put a levy on. And I'm told if you look at the hundreds of millions of dollars that are outstanding in the city of Cleveland, delinquent taxes, there it is. You don't need a tax increase if they collect the taxes on the delinquent properties. So we got a vicious cycle here. And all I can tell you is this to my honorable colleagues here. Unless we can figure out how to stabilize our housing market, our housing stock, which the majority of it now exceeds or is approaching 100 years of age, most of the stuff in my neighborhood now. I'm looking at my great-grandparents' house in Glenville, bought by my great-grandfather in the early 20s. These houses, and my grandparents' house that is burnt on Darley, I don't know if it's come down yet, 14115 Darley, which is supposed to come down, sitting there burnt for now, I don't know how long now. That's D-A-R-L-E-Y. The two-family that I lived in as a little kid. Unless we can figure out, and I would be just very blunt, Sally, you need to tell this body, you need to tell the chair, who is greatly concerned, I want to appreciate his due diligence, you need to tell us what you need. I'm tired of directors coming to the table, and when you ask them, I got everything we need, I have everything I need. And then when they talk to me in that hallway, it's a completely different story. Completely different story. I want someone to tell us at this table, what do you need? Do we need to raise the salaries to fill those 29 positions? And they don't have no problem across the hall raising salaries for the upper echelon here, I can tell you that much. That's never a question. If the 29, if we have to increase the pay bands, then tell us. Tell us what the hurdles are. What's the problem we cannot fill these positions? Do we have to contract out to get us additional assistance? To get on top of this housing dilemma that we have? Because the answer is just not continue to tear stuff down. We know there's stuff that has to come down. But I've come to the realization, trying to build new houses, and I'm looking at the empty lots, if I live another 100 years, we'll never be able to backfill and build on how many empty lots now? And I'm going to ask that through the chair. How many empty lots do we have in the city of Cleveland?
Through the chair, approximately 18,000.
18,000. As Gomer Pyle would say, my. Okay? We ain't never going to see 18,000 new houses built in this city. Not in anyone's lifetime around here. Yeah, challenge. Yeah, yeah. So at the end of the day, we got to work it out for us, but we need help. And we need honesty at the table. So you got to tell us, going into the budget round, you got to tell this chair who's committed to making a difference, because he has seen it in his lifetime living in Glenville and in Collinwood. Those of us who lived in this city, we've all seen it. You got to tell us what you need. You got to tell us what tools you need to get building and housing into the 21st century. Because if you don't tell us, then you're going to continue to be frustrated, and I'm going to continue to be frustrated and angry. And I have to contend with going to church on Saturday evening or Sunday morning and hearing about that rat hole on Saranac, where I'm going to have to, I don't know if I have to rent a bulldozer and go over there myself. I thought about that a few times. But at the end of the day, we got to do things differently here. We got to do things differently. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman. I'm like everybody else. We got to make a difference. We got to do things differently. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Points well taken. Director, do you want to provide any response?
Through the chair to the councilman, you said a whole lot there.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you did. I mean, from the whole tax foreclosure system down to the LLC plague, with limited tools to cut through that shield that they have, right? Which was the point of passage of Residents First. So one of the biggest tools of Residents First is civil tickets, which we are just now starting to deploy, and I am super excited to see how that yields fruit for us. I try never to bamboozle this body with things that aren't factual. So that, it's a money issue at the end of the day. So, we're trying to run a city with a limited budget. I totally get that. Do we need more people? Yes. We're not going to couch from that question. Absolutely. How many do you want to give us? But how can we do the most with what we have also within the constraints the city is having to live within? It has to live within its means. We totally get that. So within that, what can we do to maximize? Can we use an AI tool? Yeah, I think we could probably look into something like that also. What's up with the recruiting? Recruiting is steady. The problem is the process is slow and labor intensive in the city. Now they're improving it bit by bit. It is improving. I think it's going better than it used to. But for property maintenance inspectors, we're following a civil service process. That takes a lot of time. That's painstaking. But that's the constraint we follow. Do we need to pay them more? We did pay them more. So with this last iteration of the union contract, I think we brought pay up to where it's competitive with other cities. Is it perfect? No. We're going to get another bite at the apple because we'll be renegotiating that contract again. So we will re-examine it. We want to stay competitive because we don't want to lose people to other cities. Now, from time to time, we're going to, right? They'll get a certification that gives them a CBO. They're going to want greener pastures. We can't promote them to that level because Tom Vanover's in that role. So again, it happens. We have attrition with a large staff. So with the attrition we had, we of course had to backfill that. So think about we're net above 20 where we were, 24 really, if we take the ones that are pending. We also lost the ones we lost through attrition or retirements, and a lot of people in code enforcement are reaching retirement age just nationally, which is a problem, right? So we look at these folks that moved on, they all had to be replaced. So in addition, hiring the 20, replacing these people, it's a lot, and it's a constant battle for us. But people do seem to want to work here, which we're very inspired by. The people we have attracted are great. Like, we're super, super thrilled with them. I know if you ask Tayseer, he's very happy. And I think with his training, we're going to have a very elite group of people out on the street. But is it ever going to be enough? No. To combat the disinvestment of a generation, of 2 generations, it's difficult, but it's a constant, ongoing process that we just have to stay on. And I think where we can use technology, we need to use that. I don't know if you have anything to opine on there, CBO?
No, not much, just showing the continuous work. Looking at the document of the permits before you, it's been a slow process, but there is investment. 18,000, I'm not going to make that
Wow.
prediction. I think Ward 8 is 110% increase. So, and we're going to continue to do that, and we're going to continue to provide quality along the way. We sat here last year and said these are the tools that we needed. And the mechanism of the system is we get the permission, we pass residents first, and then we've got to build it. And we sit before, here today saying we've built it. Making a full-time professional code enforcement workforce, which hasn't been this way since 2002, where they combined the permit inspectors and the code enforcement inspectors together because of budgetary constraints then. And then, the 2008 crisis, the state of Ohio pulling the $110 million out of our budget. We all lived through that. Here we are, we've got it built, as the directors explained, through our residents first. The goal is for professional code enforcers to continue to bring them on and have professional permit inspectors and professional code enforcers that do quality work. And I believe that we are there, and it's been created, it's in its infancy, and now it's just a matter of continuing to move it forward to, the proof is in the pudding, as a councilman told me one time sitting at this table.
Many a time.
Many a times. And I think that we are on a path to do that. And victory means what it looks like in the neighborhood. We fully understand that. All of the numbers and all of the data, it's just that. Victory is what it looks like in the neighborhood. But we have many smaller, victories that matter. Our ISO rating went up for code enforcement and permit inspections for the first time in 30 years.
Okay.
So,
Well, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the response from the director and the commissioner. Let me just say this. As a young council person sitting around this table, what I learned from George Forbes is this. A lot of things I won't discuss, but there are some things I did learn. You never cut a revenue-producing division.
That's right.
You never cut or let a revenue-producing division slide in staff or power, because that's your general fund. What is your general fund? Police, fire, EMS, building inspection, recreation, et cetera. So wherever we have revenue-producing divisions or departments, that was a pet peeve with him. He would demand that those positions be filled, and we did whatever we could to make sure that revenue did not diminish, that revenue stream. And that's something that I think we have lost over the years collectively. Administrations have lost. I haven't lost it, but administrations have lost the fact that revenue is critical to our general fund. So when we go into budget round, we got to look at revenue department divisions. What are we going to do to ramp them up? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you to the administration for your response. And he's right. We, as I said before, we cannot, building houses is one of the places that you don't touch. You don't cut them, you don't touch them. And that's why we made it a point to send a message across the hall that you need to put the position, either you're going to do it or we're going to do it. Give you back the positions that you need, that you can work towards to and fill those positions, because we need them out on the streets. He needs help. You all need help to do the work. our other bureau manager back there, when folks are calling for the occupancy permits and everything else, that, you know, she needs help, right? Your department overall needs help. And last thing we want to do is take away from the department that's actually producing revenue and who is on the front lines along with our safety services in our neighborhoods. And so as we go along this process, myself, your team, and Mr. Tyson will be meeting to discuss your budget. And if there are requests, you make sure you get those to us. Let us handle the politics, you know, between both sides of the hall. You just tell us what you need, right? And, you know, it may be difficult. You just tell us what you need. And then let us take it from there to deal with internal back and forth that we all know that happens as it relates to the budget. All right. And I am interested in those prosecution numbers. I want to know when we're writing those tickets, how many are referring to prosecution for noncompliance, because that's key. What's being sent over to the court? We want to know, right? And if we can get that by ward, that would be great.
Will do.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Do you have a question, a point?
Yeah, well, I want to.
Very brief. Point.
No, I am.
Okay.
Because, see, this is important. We've sat here at this table for 30 years, said the same stuff again and again and again. I've heard it so many times. So my suggestion, Mr. Chairman, if we're going to improve our housing stock, we're going to improve the quality of life for our citizens, and we're going to help this department continue to generate not only the revenues it generates on an annual basis, but even more because they have the resources available. On reconciliation, this is what I'm going to ask for, and I'm going to put it in writing too. And I would hope that Joe Tytron could get this down, that 10 million of the funds that this department generates goes back into the department in addition to their annual ask. And then it would be a sit down with us to talk about how those funds should be expenditured. And Mr. Chairman, it would be just what you just outlined right now. How do we make sure that we have the inspectors and those departments are built up to where they need to be so that we can have a true impact? And so the issue is, at the end of the day, either we pull the trigger or we don't.
Yep.
And so I'm asking we pull the trigger.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Gray.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a few questions. First thing, pertaining to permits. I brought this question up earlier to the Planning Commission, Chair to the committee, and Chair said to bring it up to the Building and Housing. We're talking about, I asked a question about permits. And the question is this, that I noticed influx of businesses opening up in the ward. And the businesses, they invite me over, of course, say they have to talk to the council. However, they don't have to go through the zoning commission. They just have to get the permit through Building and Housing. And they do communicate with me through the process, and they say, I disclosure accuracy, if that's what it is. And then he said, that's all I need, Councilwoman. So they did the inspection of the building, blah, blah, blah. Now, if that's a two-tier building or maybe a four-unit building, but per se, the other units are deplorable. The roof is deplorable. The building is an eyesore because it has been sitting there for 15, 20, 30 years. But if you got a 2-unit, 3-unit, 4-unit building, and it has a firewall, that particular unit is only inspected because of that. And those businesses are able to get approval and get the permit to move in that particular unit in that building, but the whole building is really an eyesore. That particular roofing is only being inspected for that unit because it has a firewall, but the other units are still closed. The roofing on the other units are deplorable. I take pictures, and y'all know I send them in. You know, I work with him diligently. He knows what I'm talking about. So my question is this. I don't know why a new business person wants to be in a building that is so deplorable. I wouldn't even want to go in to patronize what he has in his building or her in this in that unit because the rest of the building is just deplorable. So my question is this: why do Building Housing give permits in that way for that particular unit, and the rest of the units are not even safe to move in, and the whole building should, and I know we're trying to save buildings. I know we don't want to tear down every building because we got enough empty lots. But however, how can you give a permit to one unit when the other units are not inhabitable? And then that person actually is losing out because they got to go through the council. And I'm dealing with residents that's calling me more so than calling building housing to say, how can we move this person out? And listen, and we're not trying to stop someone's income. But this is a catch-22 in our community, so we're trying to beautify. We're investing all these dollars in the community now, and no one is getting anything back from it. And we don't want to be the villain. We don't want them to be the victim. But this is what we're playing, villain and victim, now in our communities because we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. So why do you guys give permits in, in that manner, in those cases?
Mr. Vanover?
So through the chair to the councilwoman, what you've just described is an extremely, as you're aware, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, it's an extremely complex problem. Understand a couple things, and legally, building permits and plan approvals to construct are regulated by the Ohio Administrative Code, and code enforcement is regulated by our local authority and property maintenance code. Now, that being said, so if they can make that section safe under the administrative code, then we have a responsibility for an approval.
Okay.
But that's the legal technical stuff. The real stuff is understanding that we can cite, and in many cases should cite, the balance of that building. And there's a political side and a social side where, nothing attracts a crowd like a crowd. And the hope is that if one person moves their business in to the storefront and is successful, that somebody will move their business in next door and become and again, there's arguments on both sides. Our job as regulators is not to make that decision, but it's always, I will tell you from those of us that have done this, there is a bit of excitement when we see an old building that's been tore up and vacant, and see somebody putting something in, rebuilding, even if it's just that unit. That's we consider that to some degree a small victory. We saw that quite a bit on Kinsman. Many buildings came down on Kinsman. Many beautiful buildings came down on Kinsman because they were so far gone, and it was unfortunate.
Empty lots on Kinsman.
But then they've also been able to begin with one on this end, one on this end, and then fill the middle. So
I see that.
what the policy is for those is not ours to decide. So we regulate for code enforcement those that need to be regulated, and then through the building code, those that need to be regulated through the building code.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's a full answer to your question, but those are all the different points that we're dealing with.
But through the chair to the councilwoman, your point is well taken. And I think there's a role of code enforcement in that activity, certainly to put that building owner on notice that the rest of that has to be repaired. Certainly if a roof is deteriorated and the whole half the building might fall in, we need to jump on that. But as CBO said, obviously, we're working through the Ohio Building Code on the one aspect and then our own local codes, but they work in tandem, and so we need to be doing that as well. So I want to just note that makes good sense, what you said.
Yeah, it does. We're trying to, I'm doing my best to be diligent in the process of someone trying to revive and renovate the building process, but also chair to the building housing team, but also to see the investment that owner is losing because the money, they're not gaining anything because they're losing their money. They don't have enough money to continue to renovate. So Chair to Mr. Vanover, is there a time limit? Is there a time limit even though that's a tenant that's leasing the building, is there a time limit that with the owner, since the owner owns the building, and that tenant is in a strain of not having enough funding to continue to renovate that unit, and it's just sitting there because now they out of money, now they're scrapping for money, can that fall back on the owner that now that tenant is haven't completed that renovation, so now that unit is half renovated, is not being served at all, the time limit, what is the time limit for them to complete that that unit for renovation for for everything else to be inspected? So now you got all 4 units not being occupied, and the building is not being taken care of now. So I was wondering, how can is there a time limit for that owner to go back into your courts of appeals and housing and appeals to be penalized for that tenant not completing their part of renovating their whole unit? This is just a question and a conversation. I'm not trying to push the needle on anyone, because we're trying to be supportive of that new tenant.
Just asking a question.
However,
Right.
it's a long, now we got another abandoned, deserted building that's not being taken care of at all anymore, and they trying, but there's no money invested in it because they ran out of money.
Yeah.
So
Mr. Vanover?
it's just a
So
question of
through the
conversation.
chair to the councilwoman, yes, there are time limits. It's either completed or it's not completed. The building owner is always the primary responsible party for that. So renovations that get partially completed and not finished, there is a time frame by which those permits and plan approvals are invalid, and then anything undone does revert back to the building owner. So the answer is yes, there are.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna have to come upstairs, and because I.
Yeah, spend some time with them.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to come upstairs and sit, and, because there's quite a few of the buildings are now being purchased and, purchased to be moved into, but they've been left empty so long because there's money, because they don't have the money to continue to renovate, so they're in and out, sitting, in and out, sitting. So now it's more of an eyesore that someone, that someone is trying, but they don't have the income to complete it. So that's even worse than what it was before, so I'm going to have to come upstairs and spend a little bit more time with you just to see how I can be supportive, but also we need to, I agree with my colleagues, we need to push the needle sometime to say that, this is not working, but then again, we don't want empty buildings, but we want buildings that's going to be operative and invested in our community, per se. So I'll come up, I'll take some time to come up and look at your schedule so we can talk about that. So I have a second question for the director. My second question is, you said that on your employment, could you go back, not to that one?
Is it the people
back.
we've offered or the openings?
Over here, that one. Go
This?
back to the other one, yeah. You said key goals and accomplishment, the Southeast Side Initiative. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, through the chair to the councilwoman. These are the 5 areas that are target areas in the southeast side. As you know, we've been very engaged with Marvin Owens and the team in working in the southeast side, and that's in fact where we began our strategic code enforcement efforts, which we're continuing to do. We will be doing strategic code enforcement in that area throughout the winter. We have completed about 6,800 inspections in that area, as well as, we've seen quite a bit of an increase in permitted work in that area. So we're at $30 million of commercial investment in that geography, those 5 target areas, and $10 million of residential investment. So that's a real success story, I believe, that's going on there. But our work is just starting in the southeast side, but I think we're seeing good results. So if you ask Taysir Hamdallah, he will tell you that when we're doing systematic enforcement, we're getting responses right away from about 40% of the people. And that's the door knocking, that's, hello, Mrs. Jones, we see your gutters hanging, here's some resources, can we help you? And then Mrs. Jones fixes her gutter. So it's the kind of code enforcement, the old-fashioned code enforcement that really works. And that's the approach we're taking over there. So along with all the other investment that is going into the commercial corridors and is making a difference.
Okay, and to that, for the investments that's going into the southeast side, to that, when you go to Ms. Jones' house and say that she need gutters taken care of, is that part of the funding of the 5? That's part of them that they can reach out to the 5 contractors that was allocated to repair and renovate homes on the southeast side? If that's part of your southeast side initiative, that no one really seeing what's going on right now with that, because I've been getting calls and questions. I did receive my 30-house list that was chosen for the housing renovation, but I have not seen anything that's going on with that. So should I discuss that with you or Marvin Owens?
Through
Chair
the
to the
through the
director.
chair to the councilwoman, I believe what you're referring to is the home repair program that's being administered through CD. And yes, Marvin Owens and Asia Aaron are probably your first folks you'd want to talk to.
So you're doing something separate
We
when
are-
you go knock on
yes,
someone's
so we
door
don't
and say,
administer-
your gutter is hanging off, so you need to fix it up, but that person can't fix it up. So that person needs to apply for a program, a grant program to fix that gutter up. That's why the gutter is hanging. So that's why I was trying to connect the two. So that wouldn't be part of the home repair CD program. That's something else you're doing on your end with your inspectors.
Through the chair to the
director.
councilwoman, we hand out a resource sheet.
Okay,
that
you
in
do.
part tells them, you can call CD, you can call CHN Housing Partners, there's various programs.
Yes.
So we're giving them a resource sheet.
Okay.
But we're also, for a long time, nobody knocked at their door and said anything about the hanging gutter. And I think that's part of what the importance of the work, because some people are able to fix their gutter and they're fixing their gutter,
Okay.
which is great. But yes, where we can get these resources out, we want them to know about them.
Okay, and
Thank
then
you.
secondly, and to that question, are the inspectors that's knocking on their door, or the community,
It's inspectors knocking, right?
Those are the
Yes.
inspectors that's knocking on the doors now.
I would imagine, through the chair, both are. But
Okay.
yes, I'm talking about our inspectors doing systematic work. It's very
Okay.
much a hands-on type of approach.
Okay, good. And the last question is this. I know we were in passing through the council meetings on Mondays, and I had asked a question. I sent you 2 emails, and I know you've been busy, I have too, but I want to follow up on the address. I must resend this email to you about this house on Ludlow that is now in probate court, going on to November 26th. But she sent me an email back in early October and asked, once her house come out of probate court, because it is on the condemned list and going to demolition, but it's in probate court right now. And she asked, once it come out of probate court, can it be reversed for them to take it off of the list for demolition, and they would pay the fees?
Through the,
And I sent it to you twice, because I know
okay,
you've
I
been busy.
apologize, Councilwoman.
So should I
Through the
go to-
chair to the councilwoman. So she is an heir, and she's
She's the
taking
heir.
the property through probate with the intention of wanting to repair the property.
Yes.
We absolutely would want to hold off on demolition until we see what her plan is. So we could forestall, unless it's collapsing, unless it's a danger to life, health, and safety, we could forestall it. So I'll make sure that they
I know,
back
I haven't,
off
I
on
don't have
that.
the expertise to know
All
if
right.
it's collapsing on the inside or the back. I just know.
But does it outside look like?
The outside
All
look
right.
great, and
Okay.
I think everyone is aware of this house because it was, an incident happened at that particular house a couple of years ago. It was on the news when the young lady lived there, and she tossed her baby in the dumpster. That young lady lived in that house, and remember that story?
Yeah.
But however, that's my last question, so I just wanted to know, she emailed me a second time, and I told her that I already forwarded to you and code enforcement, Tom Vanover. I put you on the email too, so I told them once it come out of probate, then you and your colleagues will make that decision. I wouldn't, so you will move forward on that.
So what I would ask
Yeah.
that, that's a great topic that I think you all should chat with outside of the committee, so that way you're not rushed and you have time to have that conversation while our chief of code enforcement is here, our CBO, and both our directors, and our chief, assistant prosecutor for code enforcement. So you get them all in the room, and because I want to let the other members go ahead and get out of here. That way you can, not feel rushed and be able to have a
Right.
detailed conversation with them, okay?
Okay.
All right, see no further questions. Thank you, Building and Housing. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. We appreciate you. We have a lot of requests. We coming your way. Thank you. We're adjourned.